Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. Today we have Jovial. How are you doing, Jovial?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good, good, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. All right, let's do a little intro in case you don't know who Jovial is. She's a puzzle queen of the simple and the elegant, from classic Sudokus and killer Sudokus to nearly any pencil puzzle genre. Her deductions will knock your socks off. She's been featured 13 times on CTC and has a handful of extra appearances on Patreon or on the Gap series, which is the genuinely approachable pencil puzzles that's on the CTC Discord. It's a genuinely approachable pencil puzzle every single day. Please welcome Jovial.
Hello, hello.
And hello to everyone in chat. Hello,
Hi,
Kodak
chat.
and
Hello.
Tristan and David Ratner and Tallcat and Eva. See some new names here as well. Welcome. Gotten a lot of new people in the channel recently. I wonder why.
Remember to like the stream and subscribe.
Yes. Like
All
this,
the
like the
things.
stream and subscribe. Okay. Let's just jump right in. What was the first puzzle that you ever set?
Hey, so the first puzzle that I ever set was a standard non-consecutive Sudoku.
My favorite.
Right? It had. So I had the fortune of learning what GSP was on my first ever puzzle because it has GSP.
Mhm.
I guess I might want to explain what that is.
Yeah.
GSP is a uniqueness deduction that says if the clues are exactly symmetric, then the solution has to be too.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Standard non-consecutive Sudoku. I think I was inspired by the Miracle Sudoku, of course, back in 2020. I got some good feedback on this actually, and drove me to make some more. So,
Well, I'm glad you did. Uh,
me too.
did it take a while to set this non-consecutive Sudoku?
You know, to be honest, it took. I got exceptionally lucky
Yeah.
with this one. I I sort of just like threw some digits in and then like went to solve to see how far I could go, and it was unique. So
Nice.
yeah, it was probably like in total a 20-minute process.
You're like, wow, this is easy. Why don't I just do this
Yeah,
all the time?
yeah. Setting is easy.
Setting non-consecutive so easy. Um,
It's literally you can't break it. It's
yeah,
impossible.
it's so easy. Um, so you had watched CTC before that. I think you mentioned that you were inspired by a video of CTC to set this puzzle.
Yeah. So yeah, I watched. I'd been watching CTC since August or September of 2020,
Hmm.
and then joined the Discord server October 3rd, 2020, around there.
Somewhere in there.
And then I think I posted this puzzle around like the 20th of October. So
Hmm.
uh, just like pretty much all of fall of 2020. But I'd been watching CTC regularly for some time.
Hmm.
And yeah.
Did you ever solve variant Sudoku or even just regular Sudoku before you started watching CTC?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So I actually so I've been solving regular like classic Sudoku
Uh-huh.
since uh 2016. I didn't even know variant Sudoku existed. I didn't even know there was a classic Sudoku community.
Right.
But I'd been solving them, and I'd actually been setting them by working backwards from solutions
As
since
everyone
like
does
20.
set, right?
Right, exactly. That's how you set puzzles. What do you mean? Since my sophomore year of high school, so I would have been 17. So that was 2018, 2017, 2018, roughly there. That I've been just working backwards from solutions, but I don't count those as puzzles that I've set.
We should really clarify and amend that statement. That's how you set good puzzles. Sorry.
Yes, yeah, you can definitely set. Yeah, exactly.
That's actually just not how you set puzzles at all. Just to actually
Yeah,
amend that.
yeah. Uh,
In case someone's
I
very confused.
like I said, I don't consider those in the realm of puzzles that I've set. They're
Right.
just remove givens, solve if it's like keep going if it's unique. And I didn't know anything beyond like um locked sets or anything like that. So like if it couldn't be solved with like pairs and triples, then I would just add the given back. Like so they all had like massive amounts of givens. It's a thing. I don't think I have any of them anymore.
Right. I'm actually very proud of myself to have found X-Wings on my own um, before seeing CTC. I think,
Hey, that's pretty cool.
yeah,
I definitely did not do that.
I, although I kind of feel weird about it and feel a little bit guilty about it because I would just go into every single classic Sudoku looking for X-Wings on everything, and it would just half of them probably didn't need to do that, but I was just like, this is so cool, and I think this is like the coolest thing ever, so I'm just gonna do it over and over again. Like,
That's sick. Yeah, I mean X-Wings show up all the time in like newspaper generated
yeah.
stuff like that. So
Anyways, this is about you, not about me. How long did it take you to get your first CTC feature after you started setting?
that is a great question. So I started setting in October, and I want to say my first CTC feature, I know it was January of 2021. So it'd
Yes.
been if I can do math, 3 or 4 months there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was the end of January, the 29th, I want to say.
29. Yeah, yeah. You got the exact date.
Okay, sweet. So it was about 4
I have
months
it up
then.
on stream, by the way.
Oh, sweet. Okay. I didn't even see that. I was busy staring into the ceiling.
No worries.
Yeah, so this puzzle spaghetti is it's kind of terrible, but you know, we all got to start somewhere. I was
I mean,
really pleased to
spaghetti
see it
is
get a
great,
feature.
but the puzzle maybe.
The video is very entertaining. Mark is very sharp.
Hmm. It's a pretty long video for January 2021, actually.
Yeah, I suppose it is. A 45+ minute Mark feature
Yeah.
is something interesting. But to be fair, the deduction that he missed for so long, and he never found it. He found some other way through.
Of course.
But yeah, he just, I mean, it wasn't telegraphed at all. It's the only thing that was telegraphed, you could say, is the top left, because of course that's where you look.
Right. Did you how did you feel when this puzzle was like featured? Were you were immensely proud of it, or
Yeah, I was really thrilled when this puzzle got featured. I'm trying to think. It was at that point I would have considered it one of my best.
Mhm.
So I was, and I was focusing a lot on Arrow Sudoku at that time, and so I was really pleased to see it get a feature.
Yeah. Is the setting process that you used for that puzzle different from what you tend to do now?
I would say probably, although it's been so long that it's kind of hard to remember.
Fair
Yeah, I think with this puzzle, you know, I had, you know, at this point it was just base F puzzles with
enough.
there was no ranks plugins or anything like that yet. So
Right.
it was a lot of just place clues, see what they do, and if it's somewhat interesting, keep the clue in. But I remember breaking this puzzle so many times because it's anti-night.
Right, right. Um, we'll get back to anti-night and non-consecutive later, I guess. Uh, so speaking of your setting process now, could you describe in a few words like what your process from going from a concept of a puzzle to a finished product? How do you do that?
That's so. I'm gonna say a lot that it depends on the type of puzzle I'm making,
Yeah,
which of course it does.
of course.
But in general, if I could say something general about it, it would probably be I come up with the idea, whether or not that idea is you know, to make a school trip puzzle with a symmetric clue layout, but because orientation matters in the genre, that the solution won't actually be symmetric. I think I sent you that puzzle actually.
Hmm.
It's the Shugaku.
You did, yeah.
Um,
I
that
can.
probably took me the longest out of any pencil puzzle I made, but sort of like just coming up with a concept because I think that puzzle's hilarious because I think, you know, it having GSP but not actually having GSP is a funny joke. but anyways, so from concept to execution, it's really just a matter of for me just playing around and seeing what's powerful, what's not powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I you know, a lot of other setters have said this, and so I'm sort of beating a dead horse at this point, but just like opening up software, Penpa or F Puzzles or some other software, Sudoku Lab, I guess, and just playing around, just placing things and seeing what they do.
Yeah.
And if you find something, I think generally, if I find something that surprises me, I'm going to want to
Mm-hmm.
keep it in there.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Like I was saying to Kagisho like yesterday, I set an arrow puzzle earlier this week, and I was like, what if I did a liar puzzle? And then I tried to make an arrow that I thought would be not like would be false, and then I'd be like, and then I was like, wait, this arrow is not false by default. That's a cool arrow. I like that one. And then I just set a regular arrow Sudoku. So
Oh,
yeah.
that's funny. Yeah. I love being surprised in puzzles. It's one of my favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of, you know, humor. Like, for example, the Shigaku. I think it's funny, so I said it because it's a funny joke that it has GSP but doesn't actually have GSP.
I have no idea how to do a school trip, so walk us through why. Walk
This
us through
puzzle's
why
hard
this.
too.
Why is this puzzle funny? I've spent an hour on it clearly, and I haven't made any progress.
So the puzzle is funny because the rules of School Trip are that you have to place beds into the grid, but beds cannot face downwards, so you can't have a pillow at the top and the
Okay.
other half of the bed facing downwards.
As you do.
And so the reason this puzzle is funny is because the clues are symmetric, but because orientation of the
Beds, yeah.
orientation of the place cells matters, then the solution can't be symmetric, and
Right.
I think that's hilarious.
Interesting. Okay. Um, I'm completely lost. What is humor in puzzles for you? Like, describe what is funny in puzzles, like just in general. Like, how is it different from regular funny?
Something that's so I've brought this up a couple of times, and I didn't send you this puzzle, and I didn't think to, and I'm sorry, but the puzzle Downward Spiral by the Skunkworks that got a CTC feature not too long ago. That's a great example of humor in
Hmm.
puzzles to me, because you know, you open the puzzle, you're like, I don't know where to really start, and then you have a thought, and you apply the thought once,
Hmm.
and then you apply it again and again and again, and realize the entire grid is set up just to have that thought, and that's really funny. Like,
Right.
I laughed so hard at that for probably 10 minutes. The way that it's set up, so you know, you're looking straight at it and you don't see it, it's hidden right under your nose,
Hmm.
and then suddenly, you know, you have this one deduction that's fundamentally changes the way you look at the grid, and I think
Right.
that's really funny.
Definitely. Um, you know, it kind of reminds me, the way you talk about humor in puzzles, it reminds me of Clover's setting video where she talks about humor in puzzles and how she thinks puzzles should be funny or have some kind of punchline to them. Uh,
Yeah.
but I don't really think you and Clover are that similar in terms of style. And Wisteria actually asked a question that is actually pretty relevant here. Well, the question that I'm trying to get at is which setters are similar to your style, but she also asked, is there anything you would say defines a jovial puzzle, and which setters are the most different from your style? So maybe we'll just touch on those in any order you want.
Sure. Is there anything that defines a jovial puzzle? That's a great question. From, I want to say, March of 2021 onward, um, it's I think something that matters a lot to me is elegant presentation.
Hmm.
Even if the idea has been done, you know, has been beaten to death before, if I can present it in a slightly new and elegant way, then I think that's something I want to try and do.
Right.
Especially in regards to classic Sudoku, which I'm sure we'll touch on a bunch later. But
Hmm.
um, I think something that defines my setting style. Excuse me. is that I try to present things symmetrically, elegantly, etc.
Mhm.
Excuse me again. Sorry.
No worries.
Which setters are similar to me in style? I'd say I think Shy is very similar to me, and I want to say there's a Japanese setter named Quadrangle who makes just really really cool and most of the time fairly approachable puzzles. And while their puzzles are never, not never, but rarely symmetric, like they're rarely visually like
Appealing.
super super stunning, their solve paths just feel so intricately constructed that solving anything from them is just a joy. And I want to provide a similar sort of feeling, so I would say I hope at least that my setting style is somewhat similar to Quadrangle. um Sam Coupleman lines as well is a huge inspiration for me, and I sort of strive to go for what he often achieves in his puzzles, which is visual beauty, but also a solve path that is beautiful. So,
You mentioned March 2021. Oh, actually, we didn't answer which are the most different. Let's go back there
oh, which
first.
are the most different? We did
Yeah,
not answer that. Yes.
almost missed it.
I think someone who I'm very, very different than, yet I find myself agreeing a lot with, is K&T. Um, K&T heavily values difficult marathon puzzles, and I see nothing wrong with that at all. But I disagree with the notion that 1 star, 2 star puzzles are inherently less valuable. Um, and I'm trying to think. This is not. I'm not meaning to dig at K&T. I have so much respect for that guy.
Please roast
Um,
him.
please roast him. K&T, you are a terrible human being. No.
No, keep it
I
puzzles, please.
no. But I think our setting style is very, very different, despite us, like, I think approaching puzzles in a similar manner, which
Mhm.
is come up with a concept, play around until you make the puzzle you want to make.
Right.
I think what he goes for in his very large marathon solves is not something I would touch with a 10-foot pole.
I think you both go after sort of the elegance as well, though. Like,
I think so as well. And to K&T, hi K&T, I think, you know, the elegance in K&T's puzzles lies in, after talking with him for so long at this point, we've chatted quite a bit. Something that matters a lot to him is the elegance of the rule set
yeah.
itself,
Hmm.
in which that the rule set has to be like very very carefully written in order to provide the best possible interactions between all the clues. And I think Fist Mefeld says something similar as well. Um, but for me, I think it's not really the rule set in elegance that I go for. It's how the clues are placed in the grid that provides that elegance.
Right.
Um, I don't know.
So not that different.
Not that different, but I think in the styles of puzzles we go for puddles. In the styles of puzzles we go for, I think there's a very stark contrast in our catalogs.
I mean, if I was to say a setter that you're very different from, maybe like either Grockles or Andrew Sakis, people who don't mind a busy grid, who will add
Yeah,
rules to in the middle of a puzzle just to do something different in the middle.
right.
Uh, yeah, I think that's quite different, right?
It is. I agree. I I am of the
Not to roast
opinion
those
that
people otherly.
if
Yeah.
no, you're totally good. Everyone, the way everyone sets puzzles is valid. We've all got our own styles at this
Hmm.
point. A lot of us have been doing this for a very long time by now. But I'm of the opinion that if a rule isn't used in the opening of your puzzle, why even put it in there?
That's true. I mean, I would never usually do that because I just wouldn't add something in the middle and I wouldn't think of it at the beginning, right? So
Fair.
I'm gonna add this for no reason.
KNT says that he thinks Andrew's way different from me out of anyone off the top of his head. So I haven't solved enough Andrew puzzles to have an opinion on him, and I actually don't know him that well. So I can't vouch for this in either direction.
I can vouch for it. Okay, going back to what I was going to ask before we got into the roasting people. uh, March 2021, I think you said, it was sort of a turning point for you as a setter. What happened there?
Yeah, so March of 2021, two things happened in that month. Well, a bunch of things happened in that month. Near the beginning of that month, I was dealing with some rough mental health stuff. I'd also just finished setting a puzzle which subsequently got a feature a couple days later, which was Syzygy, of course. That one arrow Sudoku by me. That sort of started the whole, CTC setting video thing. Yeah, that puzzle is definitely one of the puzzles of all time.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that one.
It's hard for me to speak objectively about it because I'm heavily biased against it because of
I know.
A bunch of reasons. But
you can go into those.
I probably could, but I don't know. Oops, sorry.
No worries.
I think also in March of 2021, near the end of that month, I was feeling completely burnt out of variant Sudoku, and basically Shy recommended her own puzzle to me called Monty, which was classic Sudoku, and I hadn't really solved any high-level classic Sudoku. The tricks I knew basically stopped at fish, and Monty, I sat there in VC1 and I pencil marked like the whole grid in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I sat there and I stared at it literally for like an hour without making any progress. I just literally just stared at it. I was like, I do not want you to help me. I feel like I'm close. And literally I sat there with RSP and Shy, and they were literally just like, do you need a hint? I was like, no, do not give me a hint. I will find this. And so this puzzle took me like an hour and 15 minutes to solve, and it blew my mind. The trick in this puzzle is just gorgeous, and it's child's play compared to what a lot of us do now. But back in early 2021, stuff like this didn't exist, and it really just it's the classic that is single-handedly responsible for getting me into classics.
Right. There's a ton of viewer questions about classics. We can just go through those right now if we want.
Sure.
Okay, Naverio asked, what is so charming about classic puzzles, and do you think that the available new deductions in classic puzzles are exhausted, or is there still exciting stuff to be found?
So, what do I find so charming about classic puzzles? It's a rule set that all of us know. And it's a rule set that all you have to do is just place the digits 1 to 9 in every row, column, and box. And that's it. And all the deductions just come from that. And that is that. Presenting an idea elegantly with just that rule set is very difficult, as
Definitely.
Some of you who have tried may know. But it's just that the deductions that you can draw from that are so deep and complex. And they're just, to me, it's not something you can really find anywhere else. And that level of depth to me is just so beautiful in so many ways. Do I think all classic deductions have been exhausted? Not even close.
Not.
I think, with Shy and me and Kinlux and Fryer and who else? I feel like I'm missing someone. I'm very
T-Rex.
sorry if I'm missing you. But everyone involved in the categorization of fireworks and firework multi-sector hidden sets, that was a huge push into new territory for classics last year. And I really want to say that from that, there's not going to be much left in the realm of standard classic Sudoku deductions. But we are just barely scratching the surface of advanced uniqueness theory. And that is where I am trying to innovate as of late. Yes, advanced uniqueness theory, I feel like, has so much that's unexplored.
I mean, it's hard when CTC are trying to put your puzzles on their Patreon, but not knowing that it's unique.
Yeah, okay. So
That was a
I
whole
emailed
debacle.
I emailed that puzzle to them, and I even said in my email, please make sure whoever's solving this knows that it's based around uniqueness.
Right.
Um and then they didn't.
Yeah.
Like, he gave it to Mark without telling him it was uniqueness based. I felt so bad.
That was quite the debacle.
And that puzzle was negativity as well, if you want to
Oh, yes, of course.
hold up on the stream. It's quite a weird puzzle. Words.
Yeah.
It uses a deduction that's been known for quite some time. I want to say since 2009, reverse bug was categorized, but I could be completely off on that date.
So do you want to describe what uniqueness is in case people don't know what it is using this negativity grid?
Yeah, so I can. So uniqueness is, of course, a set of deductions revolving around knowing that the puzzle only has one solution. The deduction in this grid, if you want to pencil mark row 3, column 4, and row 7, column 6, they should each, I think it's 1, 9, and 2, 9 for those.
Yeah.
That
looks right.
Okay. So the deduction here, it's sort of an expanded reverse bug. I could spend 10 years explaining what that means, but the general idea is reverse bug is you cannot close all of a 2-digit cycle before you've placed all of them, else there would be no way to disambiguate the rest of them. So if you were to place a 9 in, say, row 3, column 6, for example, you would have 2 of those 4-cell close cycles of 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1.
Right here?
Yes. And so if you want to highlight all the 1, 2s, because those are the only 1, 2s given in the entire grid, there's no way to make the rest of them unique. So because we've closed the cycle. So
because you'll get like a 1, 2 pair here.
Yeah, exactly.
A bunch of
and no matter where they are in those boxes, they can't be disambiguated.
Exactly.
So the deduction in that is that you eliminate 9 from row 2, 3, column 6, and row 7, 8, column 4, and that cracks the puzzle. And I think I love uniqueness theory like that. It's really cool how fundamentally, it's all. I think I got really off topic. I just love this puzzle.
It's okay.
I'm really proud of this one.
Definitely. Okay, back on track. T-Rex had or the T-Rex 15. I literally can't get my brain straight around that name. Asked, what are your top 3 classic deductions? You can do a separate list for uniqueness or include uniqueness ones.
That's great. So top 3 classic deductions. Are we meaning, if T-Rex is in the chat, I don't know if he is, but I'm not sure if he means.
Yes, he is.
Okay, specific puzzles, deductions in specific puzzles, or just techniques as a whole? Because
I'm not sure.
Presentation matters a lot for that. I'm gonna go with just techniques as a whole.
Yeah, I think techniques is a good. Yeah.
Techniques as a whole. Okay, great.
Okay.
I would probably say number 1 has got to be just generalized exocet.
Okay.
Generalized exocet would probably be number 1 for me. That covers junior exocet, senior exocet, mutant exocet, double exocet, etc. All the things.
Family.
Yeah, so just generalized exocet as a whole is so just lovely, and I made a video at one point explaining them in like layman's terms, and I need to remake that video because I feel like it'd be extremely valuable because they're not that scary. Right. People are just scared of them.
When you say like senior exocet, like junior exocet, my mind goes to like A&W's, like Mama Burger, Papa Burger, kind of thing. Like...
That's really funny, actually, because in the classic Sudoku Cult pack, the puzzle I made with a junior exocet's called Mama Bear, and senior exocet's called Papa Bear.
That's funny.
So Pretty much, yeah. Listen, Tall Cat, they're really not that scary, I promise. I'll make a video at some point, just so I can show you how not scary they are.
The video will be a horror film, R-rated.
The entire video is just Tall Cat tied to a chair crying. No.
Well, you explain exosets on a board.
I explained exoset to him. Oh no.
Don't you see the eliminations?
I think probably probably a second place for me would be oh goodness, firework multi-sector hidden sets, generalized, of course.
Of course.
Just because, you know, firework multi-sector hidden sets covers puzzles like Kinlux's triple laser. It covers my puzzle Cobra Roll. Spoilers. It covers a bunch of Shy's work. But Cobra Roll, I was really, really happy to see get a feature on CTC, because that sort of is a more advanced version of FMSHS. It's so easy to type. It's so hard to say out loud.
Definitely.
But,
I'm not even trying.
Firework multi-sector hidden sets is just a way. It's what Cobra Roll is. It's you have fireworks that overlap and limit n digits to n cells. Therefore, those digits must be those cells or candidates. Those cells must be those candidates. And I love that deduction. It's really beautiful and notoriously difficult to spot. Shy's made a couple of very evil puzzles using it. Shy had a quintuple where 1 was repeated recently. So it was a 1 1 3 4 5 quintuple. And that puzzle took me like an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay, I didn't even know how to process those words as a string. Speaking of Cobra Roll, how do you make something like this? Like how do you make this?
So I'm a cheater. I'm a dirty cheater.
Yeah.
I cheat when I set puzzles, in the sense that I have a program made by Glenn Fowler. It's just named after him, so we just refer to it as GSF, which are his initials.
Right.
And it's a Sudoku generation tool, and it's extremely powerful, although sometimes a bit weird. And I won't get into why it's weird. That'll be in my GSF tutorial video that will come out at some point. But the thing with GSF is that it is powerful, and so I'll have some Python code that I wrote to generate all possible arrangements of givens, given that those givens are in certain places and from certain digit range. So say I want to generate all puzzles where, say, row 1 column 8 is from 3 4 5 and row 1 column 9 is from 7 8 9. I could just do that with my Python code and then plug it into GSF and see if it's unique. But a lot of those puzzles, you very quickly get, up to 300 million, 400 million potential grids. And so still with Cobra Roll, I had to do most of the setting by hand because you can't manually check 400 million grids.
Right.
So I had to do most of the setting by hand.
What do you get out of the 3 million grids or whatever? Like, what are you looking for?
So I'm looking for so the thing with that is, if I'm trying to think, oftentimes I will look. GSF has a parameter where you can check if a puzzle is symmetric. So first I'll filter by that because of course I do.
Right.
I have the hiccups. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Second, I check if they're symmetric, and then I rate them using Sudoku Explainer to check if there are any freebies, and if there are, is the whole grid just trivial, etc. Sudoku Explainer is a command. It's a Java app, but it's also a command line rater that just tells you how hard a classic Sudoku is, given some. It's the way it rates is weird. I get into it another time. But I rate those, and then from those, like, I have a filter of potential grids that are good. And oftentimes at that point, there's only 75 to 100. So the first version of Cobra Roll, well, I say the version of Cobra Roll that I ended up publishing was actually the first one that I found.
Right.
And then I spent like 2 weeks looking for a better grid, and it didn't exist. So there's the one you get.
I find it very amusing that the video where Cobra was featured it is sort of framed as the computer says no to the new Sudoku breakthrough, even though what you're saying right now is that you used a computer to generate the grid.
Yes, this puzzle is literally computer generated, almost completely. And there's a quote from Sam. I don't think it's a public quote, but it's something he said to me one time that I keep in mind a lot. He was like, everyone always says handmade puzzles are better than computer generated puzzles, so I wanted to put that to the test. And so I realized at one point that humans are really good at coming up with ideas, and computers are really good at executing those ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's sort of, you have to have a bit of a balance where you as the human have created the core idea of the puzzle, and then you just hand it off to the computer to make it work.
Right. That sort of reminds me of something that my supervisor says in my research field, because we're both computational physicists, and she always says computational physicists are experts at being lazy. We want to automate everything and let everything do it for us because we have no time.
No, absolutely. If that's the mark of I absolutely agree. I love automation. I love that's why I used to rely on GSF so much. And because I know it exists, it sort of has ruined me for classics, because I'll set one by hand and then just be like, well, I could have just thrown this into GSF and generated 300 million grids because one of them might have been better. And if you let yourself, at least for me, getting bogged down in that line of thinking has been actually fairly harmful, in the sense that I am now an insane perfectionist when it comes to setting classics. And so I can't really just like publish any of them anymore. I'm just like, well, what if there's a better one?
Right. So did you really learn Python just to do puzzles? Is that true?
That is true, yes. I wouldn't say I've learned Python. I learned specific things in Python so that I could use them to make Sudoku. That's all the coding I know. I'd like to learn more in-depth programming at some point, but probably soon. But yeah, I literally started learning Python just so I can make Sudokus. Artifacts Amanda, your comment just reminded me of the thing from Doctor Strange. It's like, I saw 43 billion puzzles, and in how many of them was did row 1 column 5 as a 1 make it unique? Only 1.
That's so funny. Okay, we haven't exhausted all the questions about classics, so KNT asked a question about classics. I know that. KNT asked, oh, of course, it was about classics, but it was really about variants. We'll ask it anyway, I guess. Yes, do you think it's remotely possible to slowly introduce some of the classic theory you love so much into variant Sudoku in ways that allow the solver to discover it on their own? If so, would you try to do something like that? And if not, why isn't it possible in an enjoyable way?
That's got some layers to it, doesn't it? I think it's slightly confusing to me to separate variant Sudoku theory and classic Sudoku theory. Mm-hmm. They're the same puzzle. It's all Sudoku.
Right.
It's just there's been this sort of fear behind introducing classic or hard classic Sudoku deductions in variant Sudoku, in the sense that when you have a variant puzzle with a variant rule set, automatically the solver is going to be focusing on that rule set, and not on the Sudoku.
Right.
And so a couple of puzzles that used classic Sudoku techniques in variant puzzles very well. The obvious examples are Lake Trip by Totally Normal Cat. that puzzle is spectacular if you haven't solved it. It's kind of old at this point, so I imagine some of the newer folks around here won't have seen it or solved it. Please go solve it. It's fantastic. Um, Another one is Bahamas by Codec, which is just also fantastic. But it seems so far that the introduction of advanced Sudoku technique in variant Sudoku has sort of stopped at fish.
Right.
Now, then you get into killer Sudoku. Excuse me again. Killer Sudoku and other things where you have like coloring and digit relabeling, etc. And all of those are all of those are those are classic Sudoku techniques. You know, things like if you have a I'm trying to think of an example, but just like coloring pairs of digits by values that have to be the same is very much a classic Sudoku thing. It appears somewhat frequently. And so it's like, it's not that the variant Sudoku theory and Sudoku theory are separate. It's just the way you see them is different because you're not accustomed to solving classic Sudokus. You're accustomed to solving variant Sudoku. Would I like to see a variant puzzle with an exoset? Hell no. Please don't make that. I know a couple of them exist because it's a thing, but in the few I've tried, it's not been presented or telegraphed well at all.
Right.
If you were to Infirio points out ALS and thermos too. Yes, very much so. Especially thermo chains lend themselves to like very classic Sudoku deductions, where it's like, oh, if I have a 3 on the bulb of this thermo, then I have to trace it all the way down and make a 9 and that breaks. Stuff like that. That's very classic-y.
Right.
But what I think introducing stuff like, I don't know, almost block triples or Sudoku in variant Sudoku, that could be really fun. I imagine that could be telegraphed very well, especially in something like Killer Sudoku. I can imagine a very fun Sudoku puzzle made. But stuff like that. The thing that people are scared of in classics, I think, are chains. Right. Alternating inference chains, or Simon calls them bifurcation.
Right.
Which they're not bifurcation. I won't get into. It's a whole thing. They're not bifurcation. They're only bifurcation if you bifurcate to see them. Anyways, it's all. Do I feel like variant Sudoku could use some advanced AICs? I think that would be fun. If you made it dreadfully obvious what to look for, that could be fun. But otherwise, I would stay away from that.
Right. Neb, I'm not going to pronounce the whole name, asked, I have found the classic community harder to break into than the variant community, in large part due to the extensive terminology and notation that has developed around classics. I'll add that the notation and terminology is completely ridiculous. And he asked, do you think this is accurate? And if so, what should the classic community do to be more welcoming? Or I would amend that by saying, what should you do to fit in better? Because it's not always them who has to adjust to you.
Exactly. I very much agree. Classic notation is completely and utterly broken. Terminology and everything. Because what you have happening is you have people... developing in 2006, 2005, 2007. I don't know why I didn't say those years in order. In those years, you have a bunch of people, finding these Sudoku techniques, and they're just like, well, I'm going to categorize it because I think I found it first. And it's the issue is that years later, we're finding 2010, 2011, that, oh, wait, a lot of these techniques are just the same thing. Right. And so you get 4 different names for the exact same thing, and that just changes by a single case. And so you get people who are just like, I made a puzzle with a broken wing, and then you get people who respond to that. It's like, actually, you made it with a 2-string kite, and I used to be this person, and I'm sorry. And so it's like, what I think classic. See, the issue is there's a relevant XKCD here where it's like there are 14 competing standards, and then someone's like, we need to make the universal standard so everyone stops competing, and then it's like, problem, there are 15 competing standards. It's this because it's like Sudoku notation and technique naming needs an overhaul desperately. And I know Shai and Sam briefly worked on something last year that I was a fan of, but I don't think it ever took off. But Tallcat just mentioned X-Wings. Yes, X-Wings are not wings. I'm desperately sorry. They're not wings. They're fish. But I don't know. So I guess the main thing is that, yes, I agree with you that classic Sudoku terminology and notation is completely and utterly broken.
Mm-hmm.
There is definitely high pressure to learn all of the notation and all of the terminology, especially on those old forums from, again, 2005, 2006, 2007 that are still active today. You have all those people who are just like calling everything by the old names, etc. And that is really hard to break into because there's a lot of pressure, of course, to learn literally everything before you can start talking there.
Right.
So what I think needs to change is that the classic Sudoku community needs to just step away from technicalities, and I think they need to step away from over specific cases of techniques,
Right.
from naming those. I think we could do completely away with what we are currently calling wings, because you get things like Y wing, W wing, S wing, H wing, M wing that are actually completely different techniques from XYZ wing, WXYZ wing, etc.
Right.
They're all called wings, and only like which one is wings. Like it's just so broken. So I think the main thing that I think classic Sudoku community could improve on is really just not being so gosh darn pedantic all of the time about what something specifically is.
Right.
If someone calls a skyscraper a turbot fish, let them call it that. You don't have to get more specific. It's a turbot fish. They found it. Good job. Like, I don't know. And I've been trying to get better about that myself, but having felt like I needed to learn everything to break into that community, I did. And so I don't know. But I guess the TLDR is it's hard because there's pressure to learn everything. I feel like I should mention as well, there's a classic Sudoku Discord server. Hold on, I think my internet just died. Let me refresh the page. Okay, we're good. There's a classic Sudoku Discord server where you can post classics, talk about classics, classic theory, etc. And it's all about different techniques and stuff like that. And so that place is very welcoming. There's a lot of great people there. A lot of great people that aren't even in CTC, like the lovely Luna who's in chat.
Right. So is that the Sudoku cult or whatever?
The Sudoku cult, the Sudoku cult, yes. There's a lot of really great puzzles, really great puzzles that come through there every day. And so that is the server we made to originally discuss the Sudoku Gospel Pack, but it's actually blossomed into a really lovely and rapidly growing community of just people who like classic Sudoku. And there's a lot of people who don't come from CTC in there, which is really fun.
Does sound fun. I want to get away from CTC, obviously, so just kidding.
The Sudoku cult is great.
I know that you're on a lot of different forums or blogs discussing Sudoku in the world. What are the ones you're on, and are we missing out by not being on those?
So of course you have the Sudoku Discord server as well.
Such an easy name to say too. Yeah,
I know, right? That server again is just full of really great people.
Yeah.
I think I'm on a forum called the New Sudoku Players Forum. Really, I would not recommend getting on there at all.
Okay.
This is a direct roast of all the people on there. There's a lot of people who are really hard to talk to, and they want things specifically notated that like exactly as it was invented in 2006.
Hmm.
And it's funny because a lot of them just like completely ignore all new developments in Sudoku, and they're sort of stuck in 2010, which is funny. A lot of them just pretend that set equivalence theory just doesn't exist at all,
Hmm.
which is really interesting. Um, but
I mean,
yeah,
I'm
they.
pretending that every day, but I don't publicly like advertise that.
Yeah, the Sudoku players forum is very tight knit about how they want things done, and if you don't do it that way, you will get clowned on, and it sucks.
Hmm.
Um, Especially you have people who have written. I'm just. I mean, I'm not. I don't want to say his name, but everyone, pretty much anyone who's on that forum knows who I'm talking about. You get people who have written 450-page books about how they specifically solve Sudoku and won't accept any other way. It's they're really fascinating people, genuinely. But if you want a wholesome learning experience, do not go there. I think that's really about it as far as places that aren't Discord. The Sudoku server and the CTC server are pretty much the only two uh, Sudoku servers, other than of course Ranks Puzzle Plaza, but that's more general.
Mhm.
Those are the only ones I'm really active in. So yeah.
Um, and I think this is the maybe last question. I'm not sure about classic Sudoku, which is just related to classic Sudoku. Zeta Math asked, "Can you talk about what you enjoy about one-step puzzles and how you go about designing one? I know those could be variant, but they're often classic."
Yeah, so one step puzzles, it's sort of become the de facto format for handset classic Sudoku over the last 2 years.
Hmm.
Especially since Sam Koppelman-Line's Puzzle Devilry, which is in the Sudoku pack, got a feature in December 2020. I would try and remember the specific date, but I can't remember it.
It's okay. No one expected you to.
I think it's December of 2020, and that classic just blew my mind because it's just a Y wing, and then there's no freebies. It's just a Y wing, and then the puzzle collapses. That's the first time I'd solved one like that. I actually did it on Twitch, back in like again December of 2020,
Hmm.
and it was very much blew my mind. And so I think the puzzle, the sort of the one step way has sort of become the main way to, if you want to showcase an idea,
Hmm.
to showcase it in that format where
Right.
there's no freebies or very few freebies before you find the trick, and then the puzzle just falls apart. I think that's a really elegant way to showcase an idea. Oftentimes it leads yourself as a setter to be challenged in how to telegraph it.
Hmm.
And also, if there are no freebies, there is literally nothing else to look at. So, if you start looking at something suspicious, often that is what you're meant to be looking at. I know a lot of people are overwhelmed by classics in the fact that you just look at it and it looks like a sea of digits with none of them having more power, no clues having more power than any other clues. Um, which I
Such a
mean makes
funny way to
sense.
say it.
um, but you'll realize over time that a lot of things are set up super specifically by setters, such that um, like it's funny. It's like no clue inherently has more power than any other clue in Classic, except for that's not true. That's not true at all.
I like how you're saying
how
like power,
yeah.
like as if you're like people think classic Sudoku is a utilitarian paradise, but actually it's based in capitalism. Like,
it's it's
okay,
it's it's the yeah, actually the one in row 1 column 5 is actually the kid from Omelis. Um sorry, that joke sucks.
oh my word.
um there's uh I don't know how I go into designing one step Sudoku is very much I something that is really important to me is efficiency
Hmm.
in your setup. So if you're trying to set up a Y-wing, do it in as few digits as you possibly can, as few digits as you possibly can. Um, or something like a fish. You can set up, and I'd recommend trying it if you have no idea like how that might even work. You can set up a swordfish by only placing 9 digits in the grid. Highly recommend trying it out. I'm sort of thinking about making a little pack where it's just puzzles like that. So it's like you create 3 swordfish in 18 given digits.
And
Create 4 swordfish in 18 given digits. Hey, that's possible.
if you want to see
Um,
more of this discussion, which I think me and you have already actually had on this channel,
we did, yes,
uh,
actually.
in the first setting discussion
That's
video,
right.
we discussed this. So go back
Yeah,
there, watch that.
watch that.
Jovi shows
We
how to
touched it
set
in
it
more
up
depth.
as well. So
Yeah. Um, that's unrelated to here, but I think
I'll
with
put a
one step
card
puzzles,
once we.
efficiency is very important. Making your clues powerful.
Definitely. Um, so you've said a lot that you hate coloring or relabeling. Why?
Fair. I dislike coloring because actually it's not because I don't find the deductions beautiful,
Hmm.
and it's a bit um it's sensory like sensorily overstimulating, in the sense that there's too much information and I genuinely start like getting anxious and overwhelmed, um because I think I see Sudoku differently than everyone else, which I've realized only recently.
Hmm.
But Sudoku, to me, all the numbers in the grid and all the clues and everything, they're all just like, I don't know how to describe this, but they're all like, they've all got their own like little special properties with like, all the lines connecting all the little deductions. And I'm synesthetic, I'm a synesthete, so all the numbers already have colors to me. And so it's like,
You can't color 9 blue? What the hell is
that's why
wrong
we
with
have
you?
we have this argument all the time, because even digits are absolutely red, and I will not be convinced otherwise. But it's more of the sense that I start getting overwhelmed because, well, I see a Sudoku solution as a bunch of like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's all just like cycles that are all just connected to each other. And when I start coloring over top of that, I literally just get super overwhelmed and I can't really handle it. It's not much against, again, the deductions. I do find them beautiful.
Hmm.
But I think the full digit relabeling puzzles, one, after about February of 2021, they stopped really being original. I
Right.
think the best one that ever got made was Heartbeat by SKTX. Wait, was it SKTX that made that, or was it someone else? Oh no, feel super bad now.
It's fine.
I had it in my head that was SKTX, but Stimim. Thank you, Codec. It was Stimim. Um, Heartbeat by Stimim was the best one of those for me. But other than that, it just gets overwhelming for me. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know.
What kinds of coloring are okay? And is that the kind of coloring that you mean when you say coloring in classic Sudoku is okay?
So coloring is okay when it's just like, say I'm trying to disambiguate ones and twos, and there are 18 by, or not 18, they're like 15 or 14 by value 1 and 2, and just coloring them to see which of those are the same as the other ones. I'm totally cool with that. Once you get to full grid, then I start to dislike it. But anything more than 1, 2, or even 3 digits at a time, I'm kind of out. But
As long as you color them the correct colors, of course.
something like that. I think um, I often use colors to take notes in classic Sudoku. So if there's something suspicious I'm looking at, I'll color it. Like if ones are limited in 2 places in a row, and I'm like, hey, that seems to line up very suspiciously, and I'll color a 1 like green or something, and then I'll color the 2 by value cells or by local cells green, so I can keep track that, hey, that's on ones.
Hmm.
Um, I'll color a given 1. I mean,
Right.
but other, like, I'm not a huge fan of the full digit relabeling. I'm really not a fan of that. As far as like most of the grid, or when it's completely necessary to make progress, when it's more than like, I don't know, 10, 15 cells, I'm not really into it.
Fair enough. When you go looking for puzzles to solve, where do you look, and what makes something like I want to solve this versus not want to solve this?
So that's a really good question. I don't solve many Sudoku from LMD or from the Discord server. Actually, a good chunk of what I solve are just computer generated classics, um, because I find that really fun. In the sense that I love being stuck on a classic Sudoku. It's one of my most favorite things. And I think Payatata was there last time I ranted about this, but I really love being stuck in classic Sudoku for the same reason that. Okay, so I'm going to talk about video games for a second. So in a video game, like a really hard, like punishing platformer, take Celeste, for example, where you know what to do to get through the room. You just have to press these buttons at these times and you can get through the room. I love that feeling because it's like, I know at one of these times I'm going to get it because I know what inputs to do. I just have to do them. It's the same thing with classics for me. It's like I know the trick. I just have to look at the grid and it will present itself to me. At some point I just have to keep looking, and that's really fun for me. I really like that. I don't know. It's sort of the same feeling because sometimes in a hard platformer game you look at, I'm stuttering, I'm sorry,
No
you look
worries.
at the room that you're in, and you have no idea how to get through it. Celeste is a lot less frustrating than other games when you lose progress if you fall. Very true. The punishment in that game is minimal, and it's an example of excellent game design, but I won't get into that right now. Even still, when you look at a room and you have no idea how to get through it and you're just trying things out, that's kind of frustrating for me. But when you know exactly what you need to do, you just simply have to do it. Then that's sort of what solving a classic Sudoku for me is like. And so I do probably one or two, maybe even more than that a day. I just open YZF's tool and generate difficulty unfair and then go. I also solve a lot on Puzzlink, which is the Japanese. Is it Japanese? It might be Japanese. There's a lot. Regardless, there's a lot of Japanese contributors to it.
Yeah.
It's a database of non-Sudoku puzzles. Well, it has Sudoku as well, but there's very few of them. It's a database of pencil puzzles, and you can just make an account and just solve, and it keeps track of what you've solved, what you haven't solved. There's something like, I don't want to be way off with my estimate, 35,000 puzzles on it right now. I think I've solved. Oh no, there's probably way more than that, and I'm just lowballing. But I've solved around 2,000 puzzles off of Puzzlink by now, which is nothing compared to a lot of other members of the CTC server. Tyrganis has like 5,000. I know Zoned has like 21,000. So it's like,
Jeez.
yeah,
That's crazy. Speaking of solving puzzles, I'm going to use your own questions against you.
Okay.
Do you have specific setters that you you normally solve from when you're looking for inspiration?
Yes, I very much do. Probably the one setter I will never get tired of solving is Shy. The way she's able to present things elegantly and the way she's able to showcase ideas she has. Almost every time I solve a puzzle by her, I look at the grid and think, what? How is that possible? Especially, she had a puzzle on her blog somewhat recently that I test solved called Victory Road, and it's just incredible. It's so beautiful. It's a bunch of path puzzles. It's a bunch of path genres where you just have to draw one path through all of them, and it's just so beautiful. There's also Sam Kappelman Lines, I think, is the single setter that I look up to the most as far as presentation. I love what he does. It is literally art. It's so beautiful to me. I love what Shy and Sam managed to accomplish. They are probably the two people I look up to the most.
Oh, Navaria, you're totally right. I'm So sorry, the backdrop is wrong.
Oh, oh, I didn't even notice.
I swear I changed it.
Hey, my puzzle's nice.
So sorry.
You're good.
That's really weird. I definitely changed that.
It's fun
Uh,
to see the non-Sudoku puzzles in there too.
yeah, there's I was gonna do that whole bottom corner, but then I just didn't.
That's fair.
Speaking of non-Sudoku puzzles,
Yeah,
when you set non-Sudoku, do you set in the same way that you do Sudoku?
actually, very much no. It's a completely different mindset for me, which is really funny. Um, Non-Sudoku puzzles, I specifically tend to go for, especially in the Gap series. I tend to go for something easy yet also elegant in presentation. So like
Hmm.
I'll have a series of like 3 clues. If this is the Gap setting meta for me, I'll have like 3 clues in the top left that are just completely forced.
Hmm.
Um, just so you can get an idea. Excuse me. Just so you can get an idea of how all the rules play around with each other. Um, with more difficult puzzles like the Shugaku from earlier, that one, I spent most of my focus on the visual theme and making it unique. It also turned out to be a very good puzzle because I placed the first was it the first 6 clues were very much setting up this one deduction, and then the last 4 were just making it unique. So uh, is that math right? Yeah, that math is right. But other things like the Shikaku, the one that got featured on Unshackling Sudokus and Puzzles, the very, very minimal one, that one took quite some time to make because it was focused on a lot on just showcasing a specific deduction that I hadn't ever seen before in Shikaku. And I guess I could go into what that deduction is. So spoilers, you've been warned. Um, the deduction is that because there is a circle that has a 1, um, and you can't have 2 different circles taking like one orthogonally adjacent cell around it. Um, the idea is that you have to have 4 different circles touching the cells orthogonally adjacent to the 1, and the cells that do so are forced after some um, more thinking about what the 5 in the top left does. Um, Either way, it's like the one in row 1, column 4 has to take it or something like that. It's been a while since I've solved it, but yeah, that
I'm
puzzle is
realizing
pretty
as
neat.
you explain this that I have no idea how to solve a Sudoku.
Okay, so Shikaku is divide the grid into rectangles, each containing exactly 1 circle.
Right.
If a circle has a number in it, it indicates the size of the rectangle.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Okay, yes. Kodak has made a number of Sudoku hybrids with
Yes,
these
yes.
that I have been promised are very cool. I haven't ever solved one though. I should remedy that. I did solve the one that Shy made for him for Secret Santa, which was just brilliant.
That was good.
That was really good.
Hmm. Um, Turgenis had asked, what are your favorite discoveries you found from setting Gap?
Um, so Gap single-handedly made me like loop puzzles. I hated loop puzzles before I started Gap, and then the more I messed with them, the more I solved them, the more they started to click with me, and the more they've literally just become my favorite genres to set are the loop puzzles. Except for Slitherlink. I hate Slitherlink.
Except you kept setting them.
No, it's sort of I know exactly. It's sort of an inside joke because I say that I dislike Slitherlink a lot and then I keep setting them. Um, but I think probably my favorite discovery I found from Gap is that 1, I really like loop puzzles.
Hmm.
2, there are so many more puzzle genres than I thought. Um, I think probably 3 is that a lot of them are really fun and very underexplored. And I would love to see more people, just randomly scrolling through Eric's big puzzle rules doc, tinyurl.com/puzzle rules, and just finding something that sticks out to them as being interesting and setting it. I think the world would have a lot more great puzzles that way. Highly recommend checking out that rules doc. It's full of a lot of great things. Um, yeah.
Definitely. Speaking of you setting slither links just all the time and putting them in voice call one, you send puzzles in voice call one on the CTC server like all the time, and you set pencil puzzles and sometimes even Sudokus in like I don't know, like minutes, like so fast. Uh, so first of all, why do you send so many puzzles in voice call one and then never publish them or even get them tested?
um, so a good overwhelming majority of the puzzles I set before I can't remember exactly when, but they just never got seen by anyone. I would set them in my browser and then go, yeah, that was fun, and then close the tab. But recently I've been sort of just like dumping those puzzles into voice chat one because I think there might be some people in there that enjoy them, but they're not really up to snuff as far as publishing goes for me. Oftentimes I'll just set these, I'll sit down, I'll place some glues in the grid, I'll solve it, and bada bing bada boom, I've got a puzzle in like 4.5 minutes. And then I'll just post it in VC1 because it's cute, but it's not really like interesting. I don't know. So I'll make Slitherlink, Nurikabe, Tapa, Ring Ring, just a number of pencil puzzle genres where I'm just like, I feel like setting an easy pencil puzzle, and so I'll just set one and post it, and that's easy.
Right. So how do you make these so fast? Like, I know you can generally make pencil puzzles sort of fast if you're good at it, but like, yeah, I'm not good at it.
How do I make them quickly? Place clues that do obvious and powerful things.
Obvious to you.
And then there do exist pencil puzzle solvers out there.
Uh-huh.
Some of them I use. There's one called Maya Maya I use a lot that just checks if things are unique, and it
Right.
logically solves them. I think it puts a level of how difficult they are when it solves it, and the hardest difficulty is habanera, which I find hilarious.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I don't know. Place clues that do obvious things and check if test solve the puzzle and post it. I don't know.
Speaking of your threshold for publishing artifacts, Amanda had asked, what's your threshold for determining if a puzzle is ready for publication / meets your standards?
That's a great question. It changes frequently, but it has to do a lot with how smooth I feel the puzzle is,
Mm-hmm.
or how beautiful I feel the deductions are.
Right.
I'm very likely going to remove a puzzle from my LMD count in about an hour. So like it's
Like
something I've
right
been
now?
preparing on. Yeah. I'm actually about to deactivate a puzzle from LMD. I might do it right now. No, I'm not going to do it right now.
On stream.
On stream, deactivate a puzzle from LMD.
Share your screen.
KNT Sprawl. I'm going to deactivate Sprawl.
Oh no.
Yeah. Despite having spent, very long time setting that puzzle.
Okay, let me just open that real quick so that I don't lose it.
I deactivated Mutant, Philip. I also deactivated Classic Sudoku 4. I deactivated my first Chaos construction and my second one. I deactivated the Cipher Sums and a number of other puzzles. The Non-Con Arrow. Yeah. Because I want my LMD profile to sort of be a portfolio of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be just the best of the best puzzles I've ever made. And so much like Naverio is with his favorites list, he wants to keep it to one page. And it's just the best of the best puzzles he's ever solved. I want my LMD just to be the best of the best.
Okay, but where is the rest of the
Where what?
Where are the rest of the best? We can't find them anywhere.
They don't exist.
Oh no.
I don't want them to exist anymore. So what determines that? What makes me want to deactivate a puzzle?
Yes.
If I felt like at all during the process that I could have done better, then it's gone.
Oh,
So Mirrors, something like mirrors and syzygy, I will keep up despite not liking really either of those puzzles anymore, because I don't really want to do it again. But you know, if there's a constraint that I feel like I could do better, non-consecutive arrow, I could definitely do better. Something like Sprawl, the Exomes Killer, I could do better than that. Although that opening logic is pretty cool, I could keep that. But regardless, if I at all during any point I feel like I could do better, then I am not comfortable with the puzzle. Some of them I just keep up because a lot of other people have liked them, even though I feel like I don't love it. Something like my first classic Sudoku that I ever set has like 112 solves or something, and very good feedback. So I keep that up because other people seem to be enjoying it. But
I can definitely echo Wisteria's point that, and Kodak, that if I did the same thing as you, I would have nothing on my LMD page. Literally not a single puzzle.
And it makes me sad sometimes because I look at my LMD page. It's like I have spent thousands of hours in setting puzzles, and I have what 26 puzzles to show for it. Yeah. If you go through and solve my other testing and Sudoku testing submissions catalog, I bet you'll find some stuff that you like in there, but it's just not stuff I felt like met my own standards for what my art should be. I don't know. I don't know. I just want to solve. I want to make puzzles that everyone can enjoy, and if I feel like there's potential for someone not liking it, then I'll remove it.
That's a subjective thing.
It is.
That's
it is
impossible to say that everyone will enjoy it.
I don't know. It's just how I think.
Oh my word.
I don't know.
Soon enough, we won't have any jovial puzzles up there.
True.
Oh my word. Nordy asks, do you like fish sticks?
It's been so long since I've had them. I don't know if I have an opinion. If there's a puzzling term called fish sticks that I'm completely unaware of, I'm very sorry. But if you just mean the food, I don't know. It's been too long.
Oh, J Dare's right. Fish sticks aren't a fish, they're wings.
Fish sticks aren't fish, they're wings. Oh, jeez.
That's a good one. Okay, another silly question. Grockles asks, what's your favorite Sudoku nerd snipe?
My favorite Sudoku nerd snipe, I was really proud of the puzzle Road Trip. That's one of my own puzzles on LMD.
Soon to be removed.
8. What? It has not been removed. That one can stay.
Okay.
Road Trip is a puzzle with 8 2x2 killer cages and no given digits, and it's unique. That is still kind of crazy to me. One of my favorites is the oh, thank you, Philip. Philip's response to that was setting a puzzle with only 7 quadruple circles, which is much easier than Road Trip, and I definitely recommend checking out. It's called 7 Quads for 7 Corners. It's on his LMD profile. Another of my favorite Sudoku nerd snipes was, of course, so I dedicate a lot of time to finding answers to these questions that literally no one else cares about.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like, how many essentially different ways are there to fill 3 adjacent boxes in a Sudoku, such that if you were to remove any pair of rows from them, it would only have 2 solutions. There are 21 ways to do that, so now you know. Or stuff like, how many different bands can be made unique with only 2 givens? The answer is 1. So, you know, it's random stuff like that. I love that. I live for that. That's great.
So, speaking of these weird ideas that no one seems to care about, Rom...
You mean my puzzles? No, I'm kidding.
Rom Flaner asked, can you name a puzzle where you had thought, oh, I would have liked to come up with that idea slash trick slash break-in or rule set or theme yourself, but someone else had done it before you?
Yes, there have been a couple of times in my setting career where I've solved a puzzle and gone, "Damn, I really wish I set that." And one of them is Sam's Hayawake. It's a 12 by 12, and all of the regions are 3 by 3 boxes. That puzzle is just insane. There's also um, Philip's Puzzle White Room is probably the biggest example of that for me.
That one.
I saw that puzzle, I solved it, and I was like, I really wish I made that.
I think we can all say that.
Also, his response puzzle to White Room, which was I can't remember what it's called now, and I feel terrible for not being able to remember. But it's an 18 cell killer that only has 7 cages, and so it's both minimums. And that puzzle is just ridiculous. Or was it the 19 cell? Was it 19 cells and 7 cages? I thought it was 18 cells and 7 cages. Philip will correct me in chat. Navaria, that's not true at all.
That's not true.
It's Philip. It's Thunder something. I thought it was like Thundercat, maybe.
Navario, that's only 80% of the interview. Come on.
But just really, it's on LMD. Okay, great. I'll look later. Or maybe one of your awesome mods could pull it up. Maybe I could pull it up. I'm a mod. Philip's profile on LMD is fantastic. I'm literally looking it up now. It's called No, it's not that one.
I forget. I forget what Philip is on LMD. Is it just Philip Newman?
It's Myth. I'm not finding it. There it is. It's called Tales of Brave Ulysses. That one. Yeah, it's very good. But anyways, just puzzles like that are very much puzzles I wish I set. And this is actually reminding me of something I was telling K&T about the other day that is completely unrelated, but is really cool. Yes, that puzzle is unique as a standard killer, which is just insane.
Definitely. That is.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. But the I have some thoughts on minimalism. Actually, I'm pretty sure there's a question about minimalism, so never mind. I'll wait till that question.
Well, we can just ask it now if we want.
Sure.
Where is it? Oh yeah, it's Pietto or Pietito. I don't know.
Pietado?
Pietado, yes, that's a good way to pronounce that.
That's how I say it.
What is your opinion on visual qualities in puzzles such as symmetry, minimalism, artistic layout, etc.? What can those things add to a puzzle? And when you think the setter is justified in not caring about these things, when do you think?
So I'm of the opinion that minimalism isn't something that should be strived for, unless in the case of a nerd snipe.
Right.
Minimalism should be something that just sort of happens. If you're setting a puzzle with a really well-defined solve path and your clues are powerful and they do things and they work, they reward the solver, then minimalism should just be a thing that sort of happens naturally as a result of that. As far as symmetry goes, I think symmetry is one of the most important ways to make a puzzle. Like, if you can make a symmetric puzzle that solves well, that is a mark of a very good setter, in my opinion, because you are limiting yourself to this challenging theme that you're going for. And if it also has this amazing solve path, as good as one could do without symmetry, then that's a mark of a really good setter, in my opinion. As far as when the setter is justified not caring about those things, if your rule set is quite I don't hate your puzzles, T-Rex. That's not true at all. Would I like to see more symmetry from you? Yes, but I don't hate your puzzles. I'm not even close.
Could you do better? Yes. Should you delete all your puzzles? Yes, but no. I don't hate it.
Don't delete your puzzles, T-Rex, please. Your puzzles are great. I'm
just joking. Please don't.
Please don't delete your puzzles, T-Rex. You're amazing. Luna as well. Your puzzles are good too.
Yes, Philip Newman says deleting all your puzzles is minimal
It's
and
symmetric.
symmetric.
No, Philip, I'm gonna do it now.
Oh no.
Um, but I think the setter is justified in not caring about those things when it's a rule set that it's really hard to not really hard to control, but a rule set in which you are required to have absolute control. Otherwise, the puzzle likely won't be fun. So anything that KNT does, if KNT went for symmetry and anything that he did, it would just make probably a repetitive and kind of boring puzzle. If you go for symmetry and like a chaos construction or something like that, like that puzzle's probably not going to be very fun. It'll be
KNT
repetitive.
says symmetry is a disease.
Repetitive. It would be repetitive at best. You're only allowed to delete them in reverse order you posted them. No, no. But the thing with symmetry is that you are justified in creating a symmetric puzzle if the puzzle is fun and not repetitive. Repetitive, well, there are good kinds of repetitive in setting, but it's fun and not boring, I guess. If you go for symmetry for no other reason than I drew a pretty pattern in the grid and it happened to be unique, I hate you. I do not support this. And if you set puzzles like this, you are valid, but also I hate you. I do not approve of the drawing a pattern in the grid and checking if it's unique.
Okay.
I don't approve of this at all. But Tallcat, that is absolutely true. I did say that if I ever collaborate with Tallcat, it would be me screaming, it needs to be symmetric, and it would be Tallcat screaming, no, it needs to be almost symmetric.
Okay, speaking about collaborative setting, have you done any collaborative setting, and what value have you gotten from it?
I have done a bit of collaborative setting, most of it a little bit under the table. A lot of it is just sort of like helping other people with their classic Sudokus, finding grids that work, using, especially Shai had a grid featured on CTC as a classic Sudoku that I helped her find. I've helped T-Rex before just find a good classic Sudoku grid for the idea that they're trying to show off. But more openly, I did a collaboration with Codec at one point.
Yeah, I saw that.
Thank you. It's a puzzle. It's one of the puzzles. It's a puzzle. I found this interesting thing with German whispers and 15 cages. What else did I do? Codec had some really amazing input for that puzzle. It was very. I think our communication line with that puzzle was very good. In the sense that it was very 50-50, where Codec really wanted to put a Y-wing at the end of the puzzle, and I was like, please, God, no, don't do that. I convinced you why the given fives were important. Yes. Although it's hard for me to remember specifically what happened there. But I know Codec really likes Y-wings, and I really like Y-wings when they don't interrupt the flow of what's already going on, and it was in the middle of some really nice flow. So
I'll just say this: if you put a Y-wing at the end of the puzzle, I hate you because I will just never find it.
Exactly, because it Tallgate says Jovi's probably responsible for the use of a lot of givens and other setters puzzles. I hope so. The best puzzle I ever made has 8 givens. So yeah. But yeah, I think in collaborative setting, most of what I've done for other people is name their puzzles for them, because people ask me to name their puzzles for them a lot. Weirdly, I don't know why, but they do. I get people. I've just, it's mostly just me helping people find better grids for their ideas. Nevario is saying which puzzle it is. Yeah. Wisteria says, if I had a nickel for each setter spotlight that mentioned German whisper lines and 15 cages, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Nevario says, my puzzle Sumset Sudoku is very good, and I do agree it is probably the best puzzle I ever made. It came together in about 2 hours, which is kind of insane. just completely symmetric layout, and I think the ideas in it are just are really beautiful. The logic, and especially because the given digits are entirely responsible for the solve path entirely on their own. And it's probably, it's like, in hindsight, it's probably my best puzzle, which is really funny because I almost deactivated it from LMD.
Stop. We need to have an intervention. This is an intervention. You need to stop doing this.
What if I just like went and reactivated all of my puzzles all of a sudden? Because like they're still there.
That's true. You do have them.
What criteria do you have for naming puzzles? Amazingly, we have 3 published puzzles with the same names. Really?
That is... Yeah. Mirrors? Yeah. Oh, I can't think of any of those. That's
fascinating. I really like one-word titles that vaguely reflects either what's visually happening in the grid or something in the solve path. Mirrors is, of course, diagonally symmetric, which is a lame title, but whatever. It's also about things that happen over that diagonal symmetry. Recent puzzle of mine, triplets, leapfrog, mirrors, and triplets. Fascinating. Triplets is a puzzle called triplets because it's about things that happen in groups of 3s, and you have to focus on the digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9. Leapfrog, I just thought was cute because, you know, sort of what you're doing with the 22 and 8 cages in that puzzle is you're sort of leapfrogging them to figure out which has which composition. And it's I don't know. I feel like I think of titles relatively quickly. It's like I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. It comes to me within like 45 seconds after I finish test solving it, and then I'm just like, yeah, that's it.
Interesting. Okay. Speaking, we touched on the collaborative solving, and Kodak had asked, what can he learn from you? Permission to go all out on him. I'm curious, because...
So I refused to think about this question before the stream.
Yeah.
I saw it, and I was just like, I'm not going to dedicate any thought to this. I'm just going to say what comes to my mind during the stream. So here's what comes to my mind during the stream. Kodak, I feel like... I don't know, especially in puzzles like... I'm going to bring up bent triple. Oh, is it Jay Dyer feature today? It is. Yay! Like, congrats, Jay. I think something that that Kodak. It's funny because I have so much immense respect for Kodak, and so I'm trying to think of things to say, but I can't really think of things to say.
Too many puzzles. He needs to deactivate some of them.
No, absolutely not. I was gonna say in puzzles like bent triple. By the way, I won't publish bent triple. Okay, in puzzles like bent triple, I think the central conceit relies on an assumption that classic Sudoku solvers look ahead more than we do. Or in the sense that we are better at visualization than
you are
other variant Sudoku solvers, which isn't necessarily true at all. I could be completely off base here, but that was at least my take on the puzzle. And Wessel, yes, visualization. But I found bent triple very difficult. But again, he said he wasn't going to publish it, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I think another... what else is there? Even in our collab puzzle codec, I just things like late solve Y-wings or late solve chains, which I haven't been solving as many of your puzzles recently, so I could be completely off base here, but stuff like the parity cells or late solve chains are... They might interrupt flow in some ways, which is something that's important to me as a solver and setter. I'm trying to think of specific examples, but I can't really think of any.
It's okay.
But Kodak, I have immense respect for you, and not only as a setter but as a friend. And I don't know. I feel like something. I don't even know what to say. I feel like I'm being mean. I feel like I'm being a terrible person right now.
It's okay. We'll just move on.
But yeah, I don't
uh,
know.
the question that I thought of when you said about look ahead and visualization is Woofers FG asked, how do you feel about look aheads as a solver and as a setter? Is your opinion any different for classic Sudoku puzzles versus variants? Or I would say, or pencil puzzles? Is that different or the same?
My tolerance for look ahead as in pencil puzzles is way higher than it is in Sudoku.
Why?
And the reason is pencil puzzles frequently, most genres are binary genres. Either
Mm-hmm.
something is shaded or it's not shaded. Either
By
something is a loop segment or it's not a loop segment. Sudoku has 9 options. It's either a 1 or it's a 2 or it's a 3, etc. And
so
so in pencil puzzles,
you're
it's very
non-fricating.
yes, you're non-fricating. In
It's just a stupid word. Anyway, sorry, continue.
um, in pencil puzzles, it's quite easy to visualize the immediate and even a couple steps ahead of an effect of, say, one shaded cell in a
Mhm.
heiwake. Um, it's really quite easy to visualize how that will propagate. Um, or in, say, like a loop puzzle, it's like if I draw a loop segment here, oh, it's pretty clear in like 2 or 3 steps that this loop is going to have to close early.
Mhm.
There's yeah, but in classic Sudoku, something like you know, a very I'm going to bring up Shy's puzzle chicane in the classic Sudoku pack has the single most gorgeous chain I've ever seen out of any puzzle in my entire life. A very close second is Philip Newman's puzzle, also in the pack, An Octopus's Garden. Um, I think that one is Shy's puzzle is in the second chapter. There's Octopus's Garden. That this puzzle is just insane. I don't know how it exists. Um, Shy's puzzle, I think, is below this somewhere.
What's it called? Sorry.
You're good. It's not that one. Different one. Turbulent Waters. It's not Turbulent Waters. Which chapter is it in? I don't actually know.
It's okay.
But the point is, it has a gorgeous, gorgeous chain in it. This chapter is dumb. a lot of really silly puzzles in that pack. I'd recommend solving it if you haven't before. I think this is. I think we must have passed it already, but anyways,
No, it's okay.
Yeah, stuff like those chains are not really look aheads to me because
Right.
it's fairly clear what the effect. I have trouble understanding how a chain can be gorgeous. All right, solve chicane by Shy, and then you'll see. It is the single prettiest chain I've ever seen in my entire life. It is just. It's like, how many steps is it? It's like 8 or 9 steps, and it's just so pretty. It is so pretty. Please solve it. It's so good. But anyways, I think my tolerance for chains in classic is very different from my tolerance in chains in variants.
Mhm.
It has to do with telegraphing and whether or not it feels like the setter was just like, yeah, rank solver with contradictions enabled told me that this was wrong, so I'm just going to go ahead and mark that elim, and it's probably fair. Um, Stuff like that
Yeah.
really bothers me. But in a classic Sudoku, if it's very, very clear, even in the variant Sudoku, if someone makes a variant Sudoku with a 10 length XY chain and it is crystal clear what to look for, I'm going to love that puzzle. So,
I mean, I
it
think it's
is,
just the intent
yeah,
behind it, really.
it is. And that's a lot of what puzzles are to me is
Mhm.
what is the intention behind the setter, and did I manage to showcase their art, did I manage to experience their art in the way that they wanted me to experience it, and if not, is that my fault or theirs?
Right. Um, Rom Planer had asked, and this is, I guess, related to us mentioning a feature. What's your favorite person or persons except for Simon Anthony, who you like watching solve one of your puzzles?
Shy is extraordinarily sharp when she gets her internet to work.
Mm-hmm.
I love watching people like Kodak solve my variant puzzles. I really love watching Nevario solve my puzzles, because the way Nevario is able to explain things concisely, but also spot them quickly, is a skill that very few other people have. I think he's right up there with Simon and probably Wen Chong in that boat, as probably some of the best as far as being fast and also concise.
Right.
Um, I think one of my favorite people to watch solve my puzzles is Zeta because he he tends to color the crap out of my puzzles, and it's really funny. um, my solve of Road Trip, I think I actually stood up in the middle of the solve and slammed my head into a wall.
Oh no.
But it's
Oh,
very
no.
fascinating to me because our brains are so different. Our brains are so different, and it's so fun to watch someone who thinks so differently from me solve a puzzle. But yes, I literally, it's the first and only time I've stood up in the middle of a stream and slammed my head into a wall. That actually did happen. I was not exaggerating.
Okay.
Simon Golf Club vibes. No,
No, I don't like
stop.
that. Let's stop talking about that.
Yeah.
Where does the name Jovial come from, and why the underscore?
So, you know, my name is Jovi. That's my name. Jovial is an adjective that I think frequently describes me,
Mm-hmm.
and the underscore is to make the pun clear. You better respect the underscore. That's why it's
Respect
there.
the underscore. Okay. Well, that was an easy question. Uh,
Yes, it was.
how would you describe your reputation as a constructor?
How would I describe my reputation as a constructor? I hope my reputation is that I can make puzzles that anyone from anywhere could solve. I want my puzzles to be generally accessible by folks in the general public. Like even non-puzzlers, I hope if they were really smart could sit down and just by reading the rule set be able to solve my puzzles. That's the hope. Does that happen? Hard to say. Gap has gotten me a really good glimpse into how
Mm,
that might work, and it's fascinating to me putting myself back in the mind of someone who doesn't really do puzzles, to set puzzles for people who don't do puzzles. um, but I think I don't know. I think my reputation is hopefully someone who makes puzzles that are elegantly constructed in the way that they look and also solve. Um, I hope that I'm someone who makes puzzles in which it is relatively clear where to look at all times, even if you're not exactly sure what to do.
mhm.
What do I think my reputation actually is? Probably just some cynic pessimist who deletes all my puzzles off of LMD.
Oh
No,
boy.
I don't know. I don't. It's hard to say what other people think my reputation is, but that's what
Right.
at least I hope my reputation is.
Okay. Um, speaking of cynicism and deleting your own puzzles, what's your biggest puzzling regret? Is there any puzzle that you'd like to redo or take back or remove from LMD and disappoint everyone, you know?
Um, my biggest puzzling regret is posting the mutant to LMD. That puzzle's no longer on LMD, but it was a classic Sudoku I set in May of 2021. Right, it was actually I was in the middle of setting it when Ranks Solver dropped, or at
Mhm.
least when I downloaded Ranks Solver, and used that to help finish it. But it's a classic Sudoku with a very hard idea that isn't telegraphed very well. And I redid the puzzle. I actually did redo the puzzle, but I haven't published it anywhere. So it's in the cult server, Sudoku cult server, if you want to solve it. Um, but yeah, I think posting that to LMD was a huge mistake because very few people solved it logically,
Mhm.
and the ones who I posted it along with the solution guide, and the people who looked at the solution guide went, "Yeah, that's really cool. how do you expect people to spot that? Uh, so yeah, I don't know. I remember bifurcating through Mutant very tastefully. Okay, Nevario bifurcated that puzzle very well. He did a good job. Um,
Tastefully.
I think that expecting people to spot that was a bit unfair.
Mhm.
And I regret sending it to CTC because I have confirmation from Simon himself that he attempted it.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, ungood.
Okay, well, uh, what is a piece of advice that you received early on in your setting career that really helped you?
Um, I actually talked about this in my setting video on CTC, but I think one of the most important ones that stuck out with me is from Kodak that said, "Clue your strong cells, not your weak ones."
Right?
That is as just generally great advice, like objectively good
Definitely.
advice. You cannot really disagree with that. Anyone who has ever set a puzzle will agree with that. Um, or anyone who knows anything about setting puzzles will agree with that.
I mean, it's very easy to think the opposite. So,
Exactly. It's like, oh, this cell is limited to 1 2, therefore I should clue it to make it resolve. It's
right.
like, well, if you clue your strong cells, the weak cells will just resolve themselves.
Hmm.
You get much more control over a solve path when you're cluing the strong cells.
Right. Is there any piece of advice you often hear that you disagree with? Don't delete your puzzles? Sorry, go ahead.
Is there any piece of advice I often hear that I disagree with? Yes, and Gurkel said it in his setting video or in his interview with you, and I mentioned in chat at the time that I disagreed with it.
Hmm.
So let's talk about it. Um, I think that Gurkel said in his video with you, his interview with you, that if you want to set a puzzle with a rule set, go and solve a bunch of puzzles from that rule set before you set it. I heavily disagree. For myself at least, I work so much better when I'm going into the setting process completely blind.
Hmm.
Um, and so that covers gap too. I'd never solved a Macaro before I made the Macaro gap. I'd never solved a lot of the puzzles I'd set for gap before I set the gaps.
Hmm.
And I think if you manage to approach a puzzle from if you set a puzzle genre or variant completely blind, having never solved one before, um, you will have set. How am I going to word this right? But it's you might accidentally set a puzzle that is very very different from the rest of them,
Right.
and that's really cool to me. Um, but also, you know, if I were to solve a bunch of puzzles that use a variant that I then want to set, I would absolutely 100% most certainly subconsciously just steal all the ideas. And I don't want to do that. I want to figure them out. So I don't know.
Cool.
And I just want to say as well that if you feel like in order to set a puzzle with a constraint you need to solve like 50 of them, go do it. Like I have nothing against it at all. It just doesn't quite work for me. Um, Gurkles is a constructor I respect heavily. Like this is not a dig against Gurkles. That's what works for him, and that's super valid. So
Yeah, we
yeah,
already roasted Rockles before, so
true. We've roasted Gurkles. We've roasted Kodak. We've
yeah.
roasted Nevario. I've
Andrew
basically ended.
Suckus,
I've basically
KNT.
ended like 5 people's careers.
Yeah,
So uh, it's the most productive setter spotlight so far.
yeah, exactly. Several LMD profiles have been deleted through the press. Sorry, I'll stop mentioning that. Sorry.
You're good.
Uh, so how long does it take you to set? Like, I know it will vary for different types of puzzles. So let's go through each one. Like a classic, how long does a classic take to set?
It depends on the idea a lot. For the
Okay.
uniqueness, for the upcoming pack that is being released with a bunch of uniqueness puzzles in it, each of those puzzles is probably between 5 and 10 hours. Most of the time, not in a single sitting. For the ones I set purely by hand, like all of my variant puzzles that I set purely by hand, um, those take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes if it's just a voice chat one puzzle drop,
Hmm.
or if it's something that's going on LMD, something like kineticism, even though it's a 2-star, that puzzle took me, I don't know, 12 hours. It really just Philip, sorry, I'm reading chat. Philip said, I'm going to set up a second LMD account and repost all of Jovi's deactivated puzzles, but with 1 2 self in a row added. It's amazing. But yeah, I don't know. Usually, I would say on average, it probably takes for a puzzle that's going on LMD, probably between 5 and 10 hours. There have been some notable outliers that have taken much longer, but that's probably about the average.
Do you tend to set like in contiguous chunks, or do you leave and come back to the idea a bunch?
For some puzzles, I know that if I don't do it all in one sitting, then I'll never finish it.
Yeah.
But for others, sometimes I'm just like, I need to come back to this with fresh eyes. Let me sleep and come back tomorrow. So, Sprawl, the puzzle I'm about to deactivate from LMD, it took 9 hours, but I did it in one day, which I don't recommend doing. I was actually like not feeling good at all by the end. So it was no longer fun. I please don't do that.
What's worse is when you don't finish the puzzle, but you've spent 9 hours setting it.
Exactly.
It's a horrible feeling.
And now I'm gonna go deactivate it from LMD, so it feels even better. But other puzzles like what's the? I can't even remember the name of my own puzzle. Kineticism, that one, the X sums, the 2-star X sums that I posted somewhat recently. That puzzle took me 3 or 4 sittings, just to figure out which placement of clues worked best. That's really all. I don't know. So very frequently on my easier puzzles, 2 or 3 stars, I'll come to it multiple sittings over multiple days, maybe, I don't know, half an hour per session. It really just depends.
Right. And what kind of environment do you prefer to set in? Can it be loud, or do you need complete silence? Do you use music?
So I very much I put on some like slow instrumental music, turn the volume fairly high so I can't really hear anything else, and just start thinking. That's really about it. I set in a room in my house that is that very frequently has other people in it, so that doesn't bother me too much.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're good. I was just I'm not super picky, I guess. I've set puzzles before in libraries, so
Right. Okay, some rapid fire questions. Just answer one or the other.
Okay.
No talking about it. Or, well, you can, but
sure.
Yeah. Local or global deductions?
Local.
Coloring or good lifting?
Good lifting, 100%.
Geometry or arithmetic?
Arithmetic.
That one always gets people.
Yeah, it's
hard to choose.
Penpa
or F puzzles?
Penpa.
Sudoku or pencil puzzles?
I'm gonna go with pencil puzzles on this one.
Oh boy, controversial. Chaos or order?
Order.
Cages or lines or dots?
Cages all day.
I agree. To disambiguate a puzzle, a given or a clue?
Given. Well, a clue if possible in an elegant way. If not, then a given.
Okay.
But also, I don't like givens being used as disambiguating clues very much, so I don't know.
Activate or deactivate?
Oh god. Activate if we're going for the pure average.
Okay.
If we're going for the majority.
Okay. We have about 8 minutes left, so I'll ask rule sets. So you have said to me before that you're very good at wording rule sets. Why do you think that?
I feel like I am pretty good at getting into a first-time solver's head and thinking what they would be thinking when they're reading a rule set for the first time.
Interesting.
So I feel like in wording a rule set clear, you want, especially setting gap has helped me with this a ton.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like in wording a rule set, you want to clear up every possible misinterpretation in as few words as you possibly can. So I recently spent about a half hour with Rockrat Zero the other day, actually, wordsmithing a rule set with him, and that was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
But yeah, I feel like getting into a new solver's brain and figuring out how they could possibly misinterpret a rule set
Right.
is something I'm good at. I don't know.
Hmm. Let's talk the Sudoku Extravaganza. That was a CTC Patreon reward that you
Oh
made.
yeah, I forgot about that.
About 1,000+ people solved it. Were you surprised by the feedback that you got from that?
I was more just if I were to do it over again,
Mm-hmm.
I think that pack kind of sucks. I would
I knew
deactivate
you were
it. I'm
gonna
not
say
even
that.
kidding.
I knew you were gonna say that. That's why I brought it up.
I'm really not happy with that pack in hindsight.
Uh-huh.
There were a lot of mistakes and puzzles in there that I could have done better. Um, that pack was great and features the one good non-com puzzle ever made. All right, that non-com puzzle was actually pretty good, but the rest of them, the non-con and the anti-king and the disjoint groups were all pretty good. I'm
Interesting.
really not that happy with the rest of them.
Oh,
But that's okay. It happens. I was still a baby setter. It was July of 2021, so I would have set them through probably from April to it was from April to June 2021 is when I set
uh-huh.
those, and then sent them off to Simon. But Simon and I were in talks way before that, just about for me providing something for the Patreon for the
Right.
patrons. So
Somehow we haven't touched on negative constraints. Why,
oh,
why
weird.
do why do you hate negative constraints?
I don't hate negative constraints. It's just if you're going to put a negative constraint in a puzzle and use it like once at the
Hmm.
very end, why even have it in there? Just clue something else.
Right.
Um, if like I've seen so many puzzles where I'm just like the negative constraint clues are exclusively used positively until the disambiguation.
Right.
And then the then the negative oh my words okay then the negative constraint gets used,
Uh-huh.
and at that point, if the positive aspect of the constraint is going to be used to drive the majority of the solve path, just don't include the negative constraint. um
Just say
I think,
connected cells can't
yeah.
be divisible by 2.
Just yeah, just be like, if you have, say, like a Kropke puzzle but all of the dots are just positive, um then just give a digit at the end or something. Or especially in more like esoteric rule sets, something like diamonds separate cells that are in different regions and have a difference of 3 in a chaos construction. All such clues are given. It's like, okay, I don't know if that clue is only used powerfully or positively. That's a terrible example because I can think of a very powerful negative constraint. But you get what I'm saying.
Hmm.
If it's mostly used positively to drive the solve path, why even make it a negative constraint?
Right. And you said negative constraints in your fist and thought question. They're just very frustrating to set. And I
Negative constraints and global constraints, yeah.
yes.
I think they are very frustrating to create because as soon as you really try and make one, the puzzle is just unique, and then you're like, well, what do I do now? It has, I think Sam put it really well once. It's like all anti-knights featured on CTC in like 2021 have been like geometry break-in and then classic Sudoku. I mean, that's pretty much the case.
Hmm.
I won't get into specific puzzles, but there have been quite a few global constraint puzzles that are clearly just like setter makes a really genuinely cool anti-knight break-in, and then the puzzle's unique, so they don't clue anything else.
Yeah.
It's happened a number of times, and I'm not really a huge fan of that. I
Yeah.
prefer more direct control over a solve path if I can get it. So,
So
Rich,
that's
uh,
yeah.
yeah, Kodak makes a really good comment in chat that Richard Stolk is very good at positive versus negative constraints. I have no idea how Richard Stolk sets Kropke with negative constraint, because they have very few dots and the puzzles are always just smooth. So smooth. I have no idea how he does it, but it's amazing.
What I was going to say is that what you said about negative constraints and the other thing might get confused with your discussion of efficiency of clues. So
Okay, yeah.
what's the difference?
So that's a great question. I think so by efficiency I don't mean reducing the solution count as much as it can.
Right.
I also don't mean constraining an area of the grid like really, really, really heavily with just one clue. What I mean is efficiency in setting up the ideas you want to have showcased such that you can have more control over the solve path later,
Right.
which is the main point of efficiency. Set up an idea with as few clues as you possibly can in a way that's clear to the solver, such that you allow yourself as the setter to have way more control over what the rest of the grid does. That's sort of the reason to focus on efficiency. If you just want to show off the one thing, you don't really have to care about efficiency. But if you're just setting up a one thing and it's a classic Sudoku, you really do have to care about efficiency because you want that control.
Right. So it's the difference between effective and efficient clues that you have that give you control versus effective clues that basically take away your control completely.
Pretty much, yeah. It's all about having control, and control is the best thing you can do as a setter.
Control over whether or not your LMD pages are active or deactive.
You said you would stop.
I know. I'm sorry. We just had to do one more for the end. And
I thank you, chat, for being here and for chatting. Y'all are great. It's been very entertaining reading these while talking. K&T especially has said some good stuff in the last 5 minutes. So yeah.
Oh, I have him muted or something. I'm just joking. I don't.
Oh, jeez.
I just didn't read what he said, but I'll read it later. But thank you so much, Jovi, and thank you, chat,
for having me.
For being so active.
Y'all are great. Thank you for having me on your channel. Thank you for letting me chat about my art.
Yeah. It's a delight.
I'm glad. And
you didn't even show how to do one classic technique. It was 2 hours. Wow.
I did. I talked about uniqueness. It's okay.
Oh yeah, we did one. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we did one. So
it's okay.
It's okay.
It's good.
Darn. Next time I'll have to remember to not do that.
It's okay. No, it's no problem. At some point, you should just do that for like 2 hours on your own stream or on my stream. Just go through every single one.
That sounds incredibly fun. I've been thinking about making, because like the Sudoku discussion videos are very long form and not everyone has the patience or ability to process that. And so I've been thinking about making very short form explainers, which might be a good, I don't know.
Like how you word your rule sets, the minimum number of words to get across the idea.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Anyways, thank you everyone, and thank you of course Jovi, and have a good day and take care, and obviously do everything for the algorithm. Comment, like, subscribe,
all the
Patreon,
things. Smash the bell, whatever.
Yeah, smash that bell. Don't break the bell. We need the bell.
Please don't break the bell. We need the bell.
Yeah, please don't break the bell. But smash it anyways. Okay. Bye.
See ya.